Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Life Conversations with a Twist. I have the honor of having Jensen on. Again, Jensen and I just met about a few minutes ago. We were connected in this beautiful community of podcasting and entrepreneurship, and you reached out and wanted to be on the podcast. And I'm like, yes, bring on. I love listening to what women are doing all over the world. You have a really cool background in where your business is today, so I can't wait to dive in. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, maybe where you live, and then a little bit about what you're doing in business right now.
Yeah, so I live in the suburbs of Chicago. A little bit of background on me personally. I have 4 dogs. I'm big nature lover. I love to make music and really do anything outside, honestly. But professionally, I have a background in marketing. I've done marketing for a huge range of businesses, been a marketing director for businesses from fitness to finance. Then I spun off, created my own business, Savage Growth Partners, where we help service-based businesses grow. So we work with a huge range of businesses, kind of similar to my background. Working with a wide range of businesses. I love having all the different challenges of scaling different business types and meeting different business owners and stuff. So I kind of built my business around that idea.
I love that because our world is so amazing now and we can work remote. Where do primarily your clients, are they all over the world? Are they in the Chicago area? Like, where do they kind of resonate?
Yeah, so primarily United States, but I also have some in Canada as well.
And with businesses now, I mean, this could be a huge conversation because I think marketing is like obviously probably the biggest part of a business. And that's how you put your name out, your business out into the world. And then also like how do you show up in on your website and social media and all of those things. Where are you seeing a lot of your businesses like putting a lot more focus in these days?
That's a great question. I would say a huge focus has been storytelling.
Mm,
Because with the rise of AI and just the internet in general becoming more and more prevalent, and your competition is on the internet just as much as you are, and there's more and more competition, there's more and more noise, there's more things pulling people's attention all different kind of directions. And so it's really important to differentiate yourself as a business. And a huge part of that is building that story so that people have some sort of connection to your business outside of just enjoying your products or services. So that's definitely a trend that's changed in recent years is businesses definitely leaning more into storytelling.
well, and even just being, I think, showing up authentically, especially like, and we'll dive into social media, but that's like the number one thing I say there or here is that like if you're going to show up on social media, show up authentically. Like people want to know the behind the scenes. They want to know the good, the bad, the ugly. They want to experience and learn about what you're doing. Are you seeing that again in with through your clients that you're working with?
Yeah, and a lot of the clients that we work with are more locally based businesses as well. And so that kind of works doubly so because people like that authentic feel. People like to support small, locally owned businesses that are maybe owned by families or they're showing the behind the scenes doing a TikTok with the team and saying, what's your favorite food? Or, you see those sorts of funny or relatable TikToks or reels or Instagram posts that just create that organic connection rather than just a faceless brand on social media that looks just like every other competitor out there. So I definitely see that more.
Mhm. I have a couple questions around this. What do you think the biggest miss is that businesses are doing around marketing that they're like the things that they should be focusing on that maybe they're focusing on one area, but they really should be focusing on this? And what is this that they should really focus on to make the biggest impact?
hmm I think as a whole, a big mistake that I see businesses make is trying to get more leads rather than capitalizing on the leads and the clients and customers that they already have.
Mhm.
That's a problem across industries, across business sizes, is I think business owners sometimes get stars in their eyes thinking about more, more, more. And you should be, generating new leads, new business all the time, but oftentimes I'll see businesses have the problem of a lead comes in and they're not properly nurtured. So maybe they don't actually get closed, or maybe their lifetime value to the business is a lot less than it could be if you just maximize that relationship and focused on all of this that you already have right here instead of looking at the shiny new thing, like let's get more and more customers. So that's a really big issue that I see kind of across the board.
So I always think of myself as like a business development like strategist, but a lot of what I do too is marketing and that like literally fits in the bucket. And this is like what I tell people all the time. I'm like, if you're not nurturing the current clients that you have, if you're not checking in with them on a daily basis, if you're not asking them how you can do better, be better, if you're not asking for that referral, if you're not building those relationships, like how are you going to continue to grow? Because like you were saying, you can't just have more, more, more. But if you actually like
Mhm.
give your time and effort into the ones you already have, like that is where the impact happens.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the biggest marketing channels that you'll get the highest conversions and the best leads and clients out of is word of mouth and referrals.
Mm.
So it's funny that, that being the case, statistically, it's one of the strategies that business owners don't really have a strategy around other than just kind of hoping that their clients refer them instead of providing stellar service and really going above and beyond to make it almost silly to not be referred or they have no method of collecting reviews and no method of asking for referrals, like you said. So I think that's definitely low hanging fruit that people don't take advantage of enough.
I mean, I even see it in my podcast, right? Like, I love my podcast and I have guests on and all these great things are happening, but I'm like, I'm not asking people to share it. I'm not asking for reviews. And it's like, those are the things that I'm like, that should be easy. Every guest who's been on my show should be able to do a review. Or those people who I get emails from people or texts and they're like, oh my God, that podcast was so inspiring. And I was like, and I'm always like so bad about being like, well, can you go and like over and review it? Like, thank you for that sweet feedback, but like, can you go put that message somewhere out there?
Yeah, it's definitely a hard thing to overcome mentally sometimes because I've gotten from a lot of business owners that they feel like they're bugging people too.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that you have to be very intentional about doing and kind of overcome that fear or obstacle in your brain of like, oh, I don't want to bug people. I always say, the worst case scenario is that they just don't want to do it. And if not, then whatever.
I always tell people too, like, I think people don't ask certain things or they feel weird reaching out to check in with their like they feel salesy or annoying. But I'm like, if you approach it in a way that's approachable and like friendly, it doesn't come off as salesy, you know? And it's like, I believe that people want to support each other. And if you're asking for support in a review or, supporting my small business, I don't think it's not hard to make the ask to do those things.
Yeah, it's 100% how you frame it. I
Yeah.
actually gave a speech at a conference for home service franchise owners, and that was one of the things that I highlighted was how to frame asking for a review so it's not just like, "Hey, leave us a five-star review." Because you'll get reviews that way, but it's not compelling, and that does come off as kind of just salesy, like, "This is just gonna benefit me, just do this really quick," where, like you said, people do wanna support other people, especially if you do good work for them. So it's really just kind of how you approach it. If you approach it salesy, it will be salesy. But if you approach it in a genuine way, then you'll probably get a review and it won't come off bad.
Yeah. Are more of your clients businesses that are already established that need help with marketing, or are you supporting a lot of new businesses that are like coming, starting a business and needing support with marketing?
Yeah, so a little bit of both. Yeah, I mean, there's a pretty good mix. A lot of the businesses we work with are somewhat established and are kind of hitting a ceiling with their revenue and need new things to kind of spice it up and hit that next level. So that's a good amount of the people that we work with. But there are people that are just starting out and need that first strategy and that first bit of execution to kind of get off the ground.
So I have questions around both of those. So for the client who you've come in, they have an established business. And before we started recording, our world is different now. I think the way people do business is a lot different. I think a lot of that has to do with the pandemic and, so many shifts in their businesses. I'm here in Sonoma County, which is primarily a wine country. People aren't drinking wine as much anymore. And it's a very saturated market with wineries. And so a lot of my clients were like working on like strategies on how to change what we're doing or put money in different buckets. What do you think as a business like that who is looking at trying to change their marketing strategy but doesn't really have the budget for it? Like what elements of marketing do you think that they should like put their money toward or kind of focus on or again to make the biggest impact?
Yeah, so I think if you're low on budget, there's a lot of things that you can do that pretty much only require your time.
Mhm.
One big one, especially if you're a smaller business owner and it makes sense for your business, is networking, just getting involved in your community, joining groups. I've seen that be ridiculously successful for especially businesses that are smaller and haven't tapped into that yet. Like you said earlier, people like to help other people. People love connection. So sometimes it's just a matter of getting your name out there in front of people. And so when somebody thinks, oh, this person needs help with this. Oh, yeah, I just met John who owns this business that does this. They'll send people your way automatically. So that's a great tactic that is pretty cheap or free. And it just requires, maybe getting out of your comfort zone and spending some time. But other than that, I think content is a huge, huge one. Obviously, content's also pretty time intensive, but if you are low on budget, it's a great thing to do. And by content, I really mean anything along the lines of posting valuable blog content on your website. Maybe try to get some of that search engine presence. You could also have helpful or relatable social media posts. That's another big one, especially if you're a local business. But yeah, I would say definitely lean more into the content angle rather than, doing paid ads if you can't
Mhm.
out the gate. But yeah, I would definitely say lean more into that stuff.
And then as a new business coming on, and I'm going to relate myself to this because 2 years ago I started my business. And to start a business, everyone thinks you need to do all these things. You need to have a logo, you need to have a website, you need to have a social media. What are the key things that as you're starting a business, or maybe some advice you have for someone that is starting a business, like some takeaways of where to start?
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good question. Because honestly, starting's the hardest part. Like, I would think it's a lot easier to get from 100 to 500,000 than 0 to 100,000. There's just so much you have to do to start a business. But I think also a lot of it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. You should establish your social media presence online, get some likes on there. If you have a Google business profile, get some family and friends to leave reviews and, do some first examples of your work for them, get some case studies, get some before and afters or whatever it is that's, relevant to your business. But I think another really important thing is also to set the groundwork as far as what it is that you do and what makes you different as well. Instead of just, setting up all your social media and thinking that you're just going to get a bunch of leads that way. I also think it's important to kind of differentiate yourself in the marketplace and think about how you are going to position yourself as different because chances are, even if you do offer something that other people in your area offer, you have some sort of competitive advantage. So you kind of have to figure out what that is and lean into it. And that kind of plays into your future marketing initiatives, your future sales initiatives. When you do go to network, kind of how you introduce yourself. So that's another kind of mental and tactical thing to kind of hit the ground running with as well.
Yeah. I think it becomes overwhelming everyone, especially as a small business. Like it's very overwhelming to do all the things. And then, oh, you're a bookkeeper and you're the salesperson and you're the HR and you're having to do all that. But I agree, like sometimes it's just like those simple things. And it's interesting because some of the clients that I've worked with and again, like more on this strategic, like I asked them, like, what are your values? Like, have you done market research? Who is your competitor? And a lot of people don't even know. They're like, we just have this idea and we want to start the business. And you're like, well, do you know how many event planners there are in Sonoma County? There's like over 200.
Yeah.
So now you're putting yourself in a market where there's a lot, which is, I'm not saying to not do that, but I think a lot of times people have this grand idea, but they don't do like the research behind it
hmm
before they start it.
Oh, 100%. And I also think, to that end, you've got to figure out how you're planning on running your business too. What is your monetization model?
Yeah.
What are you going to charge? Who are you going to charge it to? Who are you going to target? Because, yeah, business is so much more than an idea. You have to know metrics and all the external factors that are coming into play when it comes to establishing a business. Like you said, there might be 200 other event planners in a given area. That doesn't mean you can't succeed, but it does mean you need to figure out how you're gonna differentiate yourself in a market like that.
Yeah. And I see people missing that boat all the time. I'm like, The other thing too that I'm seeing a lot of people are not doing, and again, this is like a free thing that you do, is like have meetings with other people who can support your business. So again, like asking for referrals, but like who are you talking to in the community that can support you and refer you? And like how are you building those relationships? And it's not always about like, well, this X person isn't going to send me, business, or they're not going to be a top client for me, but you never know like who they know that could be your top client. And so
Oh,
again, I
yeah.
think it's like being strategic about who you're connecting with in the community.
Yeah, 100%, and that's a really good point. It almost reminds me of Pretty Woman where she's being treated poorly because the worker thinks that she won't be a customer, and then she comes back, she's like, "Big mistake." That's kinda what it reminds me of when people are just hyper focused on like, I only want to network with people that can buy my thing today, or they're going to immediately refer me today. But to your point, I've had referrals from the most random people that have absolutely no relation to what I do or, who I serve. And they just meet somebody someday and they're like, wow, yeah, Jensen could actually really help you. So, yeah, I think just kind of being open minded and just not putting yourself in a box as far as, I can only talk to these people or these people only are the only people that are valuable to me. But I also think strategic partnerships are huge because that is something that's really helpful when it comes to differentiating yourself as well. If you see a lot of wedding companies out there, they'll have strategic partners where maybe they sell wedding photography, but they'll have a DJ on deck that they'll do a discount when you bundle both services. So things like that, where it's like you have something that a billion other people in your market are selling, but you're doing something a little bit different that adds value to the people you're selling it to that's beyond just, we do photography.
Totally. I want to switch gears and talk about all the different platforms there are to market right now. You have YouTube, you have LinkedIn, you have Facebook, you have Instagram, you have TikTok. Like I feel like those are kind of like and Pinterest are kind of like still lingering, right? How do you work with clients to figure out the best one for them is
Mhm.
one question. And then two, as a small business owner who again has so many things going at them, where can you learn like the best one for you, but also like what are the trend, like how do you keep up on all the things, like all the different features and especially like the algorithms and all of these things, like how do you keep up on that?
Yeah. So a big way that I keep up on it is I'm part of a lot of different marketing groups, whether it's just, on Facebook, LinkedIn, where people are just kind of talking about things that they're seeing and doing and things like that. But also, typically when new features are released, the platform will kind of say, oh, we're rolling this out and whatnot. And when something does get released, we'll test it out, see what works. Cause sometimes they'll release features that are kind of a nothing burger, but then sometimes they'll release things that are super helpful. So yeah, those are kinda two of the big things, just by being on the platform so much, you notice even the smallest changes too. But as far as kind of finding the right channels, that's a really good question because I think a big mistake a lot of business owners wanna make too is you get so overwhelmed when you build your business and you're coming out the gate, you kinda wanna do everything and a little bit of everything. And I would rather do 2 or 3 things really well than do 9 things, and I'm not really kinda putting enough effort into any of them. But there's a couple of different ways to figure out what will work for a client. One is kinda if they've done anything in the past, look at what has already worked for them. That's a big one because if we already have data and feedback to make a decision like, "Oh, yeah, this has been great. Why don't we just double down on that?" Well, then we kind of already have some direction there, but there's also empirical data on who's using different channels and whatnot. So, maybe if you're running a residential HVAC company, you probably aren't gonna be investing all your ad dollars into LinkedIn ads, for example, because you can kinda see, okay, primarily the demographics here make more sense for us to target based on our business type. So it's kind of partially just taking, people on a given platform and just using your common sense to figure out what works. But if you're kind of completely at a loss and you don't know what would make sense, you can always allocate a small budget to kind of just test a couple of different channels and see what works. Because usually you can kind of have a good idea of if we are doing something like, I'm trying to think of a good example here, like residential painting. Maybe we could run a deal on Facebook and Instagram and Google ads. Those would probably be good places to target given the thing that we're offering. And we can kind of just, with pretty a high certainty say that those would be good channels. But like I said, if you're just completely lost, you could just test it, just allocate a small budget, test it, see what your results are, because I mean, the numbers don't lie. That's always the best way, is to have real data to tell you something.
And then I think like some people might say, oh, I'm on social media, but I don't get any business from it, which I mean, probably is true. But I think it's also just knowing that you're like bringing awareness around your business. And when somebody does ask, oh, do you, like I also own a labor company, an event labor company as well. And like I had just posted the other day, like something and people are like, oh, well, what about Heather? You know what I mean? Like I think sometimes just like saying like, hi, we're here and here's what we do consistently, when somebody asks when they need something, and like you're kind of like first top of mind. And
Mhm.
I say that when I'm working with clients on building relationships, like I'm like, great, you're on a vendor list, but like, are you engaging with that venue frequently so they remember who you are? So when they're doing a site visit, they're most likely going to recommend you because you just emailed them today, or you just sent them a text, or they saw you in a social media feed. Like you stay top of mind, especially in a saturated market when there's so many people. So again, I think people always get lost in like, oh, like I'm not making all this money from this platform. But again, it's
Yes.
all about being like showing that you're there.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because it's a system rather than everything kind of in its own silo. And to that end, that's why I was talking about content creation earlier. It's an owned channel. So if you're creating content, you kind of have control over what you're posting, when you're posting it. You have a little bit of control over the narrative with who you're getting in front of. But also, I always suggest that posting, because I can't think of the stat off the top of my head, but a large majority of people will check out a company's social media before buying from them. So if you don't have a post since like 2021, they're going to be like, is this company even still open? Whereas there are some local businesses that have an amazing social media presence. And because they continuously invest in that, they start to kind of build this brand and this awareness in their given area, even though people might not be calling them directly off their Facebook page where they can say, oh, I made $1,000 off my Facebook post today. It's like you're building this entire brand. So it's about so much more than just, oh, I didn't make money off this post today, so I just shouldn't post ever again. It all
Mhm.
plays into each other.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts around newsletters? Because I do listen to podcasts and it's usually around business because like when I get a certain amount of time to be able to like absorb information, it's always about business.
Mhm.
And I listen to a lot of marketing podcasts, and a lot of them say that we as business owners should drive more business to like getting their emails and like keeping them in our own funnel and doing newsletters. But then I also think as a consumer, I get so many emails all the time that I'm like, delete, 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 delete.
Yes.
So, what are your thoughts around newsletters?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it really kind of depends on what you're including in it. Because
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of email marketing, but a lot of companies will use newsletters more as just a promotional piece rather than thinking about, this is actually going to a consumer that gave me their email for this specific reason. And instead, they're just saying, like, oh, hey, we sell this. And like you said, especially when you get 1,000 emails a day, there's nothing compelling or engaging about that. But I think, let's say I had somebody give me their email because they're interested in my marketing agency. Well, email marketing wise, it's probably a great idea to send out emails that are valuable for them. If they've signed up because they're interested in my marketing agency, they're probably interested in growing their business. So, what if I give them a newsletter where it's like, hey, here are 5 growth tips that we learned in the first quarter of 2025? That's actually valuable. It's engaging. It's going to solidify the value that we bring to the table and kind of help to build our brand in their minds. So, to that end, yes, sending out regular emails is great, but I also think kind of consider what you're including
Mhm.
in those newsletters and if it really benefits the end user, or if you're just trying to, be overly salesy.
Totally. Yeah, that's actually a really great reminder. I wrote down some notes just for myself. I do a newsletter for my business. It is for my business, but it's also more like I promote my podcast, or if I do a women's retreat, like I'm doing that. And the reason I like it too is I forget that not everybody's on social media. Like I
Mhm.
think people think that everybody's on social media. Well, I know a lot of people who are like, I don't want to be on social media anymore. Or they're heavy in one, like they're heavy in Instagram and not on Facebook, or,
Mhm.
vice versa. But for me, this is like getting them in their inbox and being like, here are my podcasts that I just released. Here's stuff that like I've been promoting on social media. And we all know that like not everybody sees everything that they post. So for me, it's like a great way to remind them of like you said, like, here's what I do. Here's some takeaways and those kinds of things. So that's a really
Mhm.
great reminder.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of the time you can also repurpose things that you've done as well. So, I see a lot of businesses think that, well, if I'm gonna send out emails, I have to create things from scratch, but it's like, well, if you posted a YouTube video that maybe explained, 5 mistakes that homeowners make when it comes to their HVAC or whatever. It's like you could literally take that and you could plug it into an AI software and it can pull out all the big takeaways and format it into an email and you can send it out in like 10 minutes.
Mhm.
So that's another thing to kind of highlight there with the new technology that's coming out, you can so easily repurpose things from one channel to another too. So it makes kind of following up and staying top of mind on different channels a lot easier than it ever has been.
So good. Is there any other pillars in marketing that we didn't talk about? I guess the last one would probably be website. I hear all kinds of opinions about websites. Like some people put too much content, people are like, you don't put enough. What are your thoughts around websites?
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
I know.
So
Sorry.
yeah, no, well, I think, websites and SEO are some of the most complicated things to stay on top of when it comes to online marketing because things are constantly changing. Great example of something that really changed the space was now on Google, if you search any question, you're going to have that little AI overview. And in addition to that, with different AI models giving recommendations to sites and things, having your site pop up in AI recommendations is like another thing that people are thinking about now. So,
And how do you do that? I now that you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, that does pop up. And how do you get on that?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not an expert on that, I will say, but all that to say, I mean, there's so many tools out there when it comes to SEO, and there's a whole bunch of considerations from the content that you're posting, because that's a huge part of it, but also all the technical aspects of your website too, like how it's formatted, how easily search engines can digest it. So it's a tough one because you really have to have somebody that has the bandwidth to be able to take all that information in and make the changes that need to be changed to be optimized for search engines. But yeah, it's a pretty hefty undertaking.
I know. It's so funny because, people think, oh, business development strategy or marketing strategist or whatever, like these worlds that you and I probably sit in very often. Like sometimes I get to a client and I'm like, I can help you with the strategy, but if you need a deeper dive into something very specific, I will refer you out because
Mhm.
you obviously need someone that's like really focused on that. Like I'm like on like the overarching. And I can dive into like some good stuff, but like if you need SEO help, like I'm going to give you to an SEO person. If you need someone to develop a website, like I'm going to give you to that person because like
Mhm.
there's people out there that literally are just specific on that.
Mhm. Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely one of those things that you've got to have a deep understanding of it. It's not something you can kind of just surface level do. It's pretty and it's ongoing too. You have to
Right.
constantly be staying on top of that and taking care of these issues and things. So, yeah, definitely a technical undertaking.
Yeah. But yeah, is there anything else in the marketing world that we didn't talk about or trends or things that you're seeing in businesses that you would love to share with everybody?
I will say a trend that I think is very helpful for business owners to know about right now is with paid ads. I mean, really like the past 10 years on paid ad platforms like Meta, for example, targeting options have become more and more limited. And it's become more and more difficult to specifically say, hey, I want to target this person that likes this thing. The algorithm actually is more leaning toward broader audiences. And so now it's more important than ever to kind of call out your audience. And we're really seeing a shift towards quality ads being rewarded more. You can't really rely on the algorithm to kind of push you in front of the right person anymore. Now you kind of have to rely on actually having really good ads that kind of naturally go into or go in front of the right audience. So
Mhm.
that's definitely a big change in the marketing world.
Mm. It's a lot to keep up of, but that's why they hire people like us who do the research to be able to help them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, well, is there anything else that we didn't talk about or anything you want to discuss? I know we'll put in the show notes like how they can find you and follow you and hire you and do all the things, but is there anything you want to leave the listeners with today?
That's a great question. Leave the listeners with today. I will say the big takeaway that I would like to impart is for people to just do the thing that they've been thinking about doing, but they've been putting off. And that's a reminder to myself as well, because I always find myself kind of thinking about, yeah, I'll do that this time, or I'll do that once I get there. But that's a reminder for myself and also a reminder for everybody listening. Whatever you're thinking about and whatever came to mind when I just said that, just do it.
Mm. So good. I totally believe in that. I love that message so much. I'm so glad we connected. I would love to stay connected and watch your journey and support each other because I think our work is similar, but also different and how we can, refer different clients to each other. I'm in a total revamp of what I want my world to be, my working world. I want to work less and I'm trying to figure out how to do that and do more like podcasting stuff. But
Mhm.
I would love to stay connected. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.